No. No.
Roll your window down.
No.
Roll your window down so we can talk.
Nope. Nope.
Get out.
No.
You've been following us this whole time.
Nope. I'm not getting out of the car. Not getting out of the car, and I'm not opening the window.
This whole time. What's going on? You've been following us this whole time.
I sure
What's
have.
going on?
Yeah, because you tried to kidnap some people in my neighborhood. I'm not opening the car. Don't break my window, dude. You don't want to.
Is there a problem? Why are you following us?
I don't want you to kidnap my neighbors, man.
Hey guys, wow. You hear it first before you see it, those blue and red lights flickering against frost-covered windows, the hollow clunk of boots on icy porches, the mechanical voice through a megaphone, ice, open the door. And then it starts, metal slamming into wood, dogs barking in confusion, children screaming half asleep in their pajamas. You probably won't survive this, at least not the way you were. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments so I know where you're watching from. And let's go on the journey of today's story together. You pull back the curtains just enough to see your neighbor Luis, who fixes cars for everyone on the block, being cuffed at gunpoint in front of his snow-covered Honda. It's not even 6 a.m. The coffee machine hasn't finished brewing. His kids are crying from inside the house. One holds a stuffed panda. The agents, masked and armored, look like they're prepping for a war zone, not a family's kitchen. You count 3 vans, 2 unmarked SUVs, and a K-9 unit. No warrants shown, no explanations given. All across Massachusetts that morning, scenes like this unfold with surgical precision. Nearly 1,500 taken, almost all men, many without recent convictions, most scooped up while doing mundane things, walking to work, picking up dry cleaning, attending Sunday church. The Boston Globe called it an administrative sweep. ICE called it Operation Crosscheck. The press release said the goal was to apprehend criminal aliens and threats to national security. What they didn't say is that many were arrested for re-entering the U.S. decades ago or overstaying a visa after surviving a civil war. ICE itself once cited to grant them temporary protection. One man in New Bedford was taken just after finishing his night shift gutting fish. Another was in the waiting room of a dentist's office, still holding a clipboard. You remember reading once on the ICE site about how agents are discouraged from targeting sensitive locations, hospitals, schools, churches. That rule, it seems, didn't make it to Massachusetts that day. You never thought it would hit here, your corner of Massachusetts, with its clapboard homes and Dunkin' Donuts on every other street. But to ICE, sanctuary cities are ripe fruit. New Bedford, Lynn, Lawrence, Brockton towns with long histories of immigration and just enough budget strain to make them vulnerable to federal pressure. Massachusetts had quietly become one of ICE's most active enforcement zones in early 2025, despite being known for its pro-immigrant stance. They called it a compliance operation. Crosscheck, they said, was targeting non-citizens with criminal records. But there was a pattern in the silence. Local police departments weren't always notified. Some mayors didn't even know. Families found out when fathers disappeared mid-shift and didn't come home. You saw it on the news anchor voices detached, stating numbers like scoreboard tallies. 1,461 apprehended across the state in 4 days. 4 days. The size of a small town vanished. ICE's press release claimed most of the targets were gang members, sex offenders, or repeat violent criminals. But the data told a more ambiguous story. Only 12% of those arrested had any recent violent felony. The rest included people with traffic offenses, immigration violations, or long-settled cases, some dating back to the 90s. You remember what Track found. The largest segment had no recent convictions at all. What turned Massachusetts into a testing ground? Insiders pointed to recent court rulings that limited ICE's ability to detain without probable cause. The Biden administration had officially narrowed ICE priorities, but field agents told Reuters they were being encouraged to act independently of those memos. "It's like we got our teeth back," one agent was quoted. That same article detailed internal emails showing raids were sometimes approved with only partial addresses or shared tip line rumors. Even The Independent ran an op-ed with a biting headline: "Sanctuary cities are the new battleground in ICE's unseen war." You felt that chill again because this wasn't just a roundup. It was a warning. A federal demonstration that nowhere is truly safe. Luis hadn't even finished his eggs. That's what his daughter Camila keeps telling people, over and over, like it's the only part of the morning she can make sense of. Poppy didn't finish his eggs. It was supposed to be a normal Thursday. School drop-off, mechanic shop by 9, tacos with cousins after work. You knew Luis. Everyone did. Salvadoran by birth, Massachusetts by heart. He'd lived in Worcester for 17 years, coached youth soccer, and fixed up donated bikes for local refugee kids. His only run-in with the law? A bar fight when he was 19 before DACA, before TPS, before he ever held his daughter's hand on the first day of kindergarten. That misdemeanor was supposed to have been expunged. But ICE doesn't forget, not when quotas are on the line. They got him just after sunrise. Camila remembers the sound glass breaking. Her mom thought it was a break-in. It wasn't. It was ICE, entering without a warrant. They told Luis he'd get to say goodbye, then cuffed him before he could even lace his boots. Camila missed school for a week after that. She started biting her fingernails so hard they bled. Her teachers told her to draw how she felt. She handed in a picture of a man behind bars with a question mark for a face. In the upper corner, she wrote, "Is this still my home?" Luis was moved 3 times in 7 days from Bristol County Jail to a holding center in Connecticut, then to a contracted GEO Group facility in New Jersey. His wife couldn't find him for 5 of those days. When she called ICE, they said he was in transfer status. No lawyer, no charges, no timeline. You read about a case like his in the Marshall Project. The story matched Luis almost exactly. Undocumented father, no recent crimes, detained without due process. The difference? That man was deported before his lawyer could even file an appeal. Gone in 13 days. His toddler now says phone instead of dad. Luis may not get that long. You tell yourself he'll come back. But your voice shakes when you say it. You sit at your kitchen table, laptop open, eyes scanning reports from Track and ProPublica. You want to believe this is about justice, that the people ICE took were real threats, but the numbers won't let you. They speak in rows and pie charts, cold but clear. Of the 1,461 arrests made in Massachusetts, 43% had no current criminal conviction. According to Track's public data release dated April 2025, the majority of these individuals were detained for civil immigration violations, overstays, reentry, or missed hearings from decades ago. A small fraction, just 6%, had been charged with anything categorized as violent, and many of those were pending, untried. You look deeper and find one of the most cited reasons for arrest: administrative immigration violation. That phrase sounds like a clerical error, not a justification for tearing someone from their children. One 67-year-old man from Fall River was apprehended at his job in a nursing home cafeteria. His record? A 1987 DUI. He'd been sober for 30 years. Another case, a college student in Boston, brought here at age 6, flagged during a routine Uber check when ICE accessed local DMV facial recognition databases. The ACLU called it a backdoor deportation dragnet. You stumble on an article from Wired about how ICE's risk classification assessment tool was quietly deactivated last year. The program had previously advised agents on whether to detain or release someone based on threat level. Now without it, field officers were relying on gut feeling, a term used in a leaked ICE memo reviewed by The Intercept. The math hits you hardest. Of the 1,461 arrested, 617 were labeled as priority by ICE. That leaves 844 people taken in who didn't meet official ICE criteria under current federal guidelines. Nearly 60%. You remember reading an ICE.gov article that proudly stated they use a targeted enforcement model. You wonder, what target are they aiming at, and who decided where the bullseye is? At the bottom of the Track page, one line stings. In the absence of consistent judicial oversight, discretion becomes indistinguishable from bias. You want to believe there's a line, some moral boundary that keeps the system humane. But the debate isn't as clean as you hoped. These are criminals, one radio caller says bluntly on WBUR. They broke the law just by being here. Others nod along in comment threads and town halls. To them, ICE is just law enforcement, no different than local police, doing the job the feds pay them to do. Public safety is the argument. If you let one person slip through, what about the next? What about fentanyl? MS-13. But then you think of Luis, of Camila drawing bars around her father's face. You remember the numbers. More than 600 of the arrested had no record at all. You reread a comment on ICE's Facebook post where someone writes, "If they're here illegally, they deserve whatever happens." The post had 7,000 likes. That same week, the New York Times ran an editorial titled, "When Law Becomes Punishment." It argued that immigration enforcement is no longer about regulation, it's about vengeance. And still, some voices from inside the system push back. You find an anonymous interview with a former ICE supervisor in ProPublica. "I joined to stop real threats, traffickers, cartel guys. But lately it's felt like we're just cleaning spreadsheets. Some agents are told, make your numbers look good, arrest who you can." Legal scholars say it plainly. The 1982 Supreme Court decision Plyler v. Doe guaranteed education for undocumented children. But in practice, ICE raids outside of schools, hospitals, and churches blur that promise. A chilling effect, writes the Migration Policy Institute, is indistinguishable from outright exclusion. Then there's the story of a man in Quincy mistaken for his brother, detained for 10 days. He showed his ID, paycheck stubs, even a marriage certificate. ICE still processed him for removal until a local journalist exposed the mistake. ICE called it an unfortunate clerical error. You read the headline on nypost.com. He was born in Boston. ICE didn't care. Maybe the debate isn't safety versus lawlessness. Maybe it's fear versus fairness. You hear it in the playground whispers. The kids aren't laughing the same. In Brockton, 2 brothers ages 7 and 9 were left at school for nearly 12 hours after their mom was detained outside a post office. No one knew who to call. Their father had been deported the year before. That night, they slept on a friend's couch, eating cold cereal and asking, "Will ICE take us too?" At the local clinic in Lawrence, nurses report a 41% drop in immigrant walk-ins that week. People stopped coming in for cancer screenings, prenatal checks, even vaccines. A mother with asthma brings her child only when he turns blue. You overhear her whispering in Spanish, "ICE is in the parking lot sometimes." Church attendance dips too. A priest in Lowell tells The Guardian he had to lock the parish doors during Mass just in case. He posted a handwritten sign, "No one turned away, no one betrayed." Still, half the pews sat empty. The teachers feel it hardest. Miss Ramirez at Lynn Elementary tells NPR she now keeps a box of spare clothes, toothbrushes, and snack bars in her desk drawer for the kids who don't go home. "We call it the emergency shelf," she says, but they all know what it means. One Friday in Revere, a bus driver finds a child crying, clutching a note in shaky handwriting. "If I go alone, help me. My mommy was taken." ICE had picked up her mother 2 nights before, during a traffic stop that escalated when she couldn't produce valid ID. No criminal charges, no warrant, just a broken taillight. That mother is now at the Franklin County House of Corrections, waiting to see if her deportation case will be expedited. You read an internal DHS memo leaked to The Intercept that shows agents were instructed to minimize media exposure during removals. But what they didn't count on were the community networks, the grandmothers, the neighbors, the friends with iPhones sharing every arrest, every face, every silence. Because when ICE leaves, it's not over. The absence stays. It hollows out rooms, rearranges futures, and turns a normal morning into something children won't forget. You walk past the old mill by the river, the one that used to churn with textile workers and now hums with secondhand auto shops and bodegas. You think of all the lives once woven through its walls, immigrants then, immigrants now. What changes? What repeats? That's the question that won't leave you alone. There's something strange about watching a country forget its own story. The same nation that once welcomed war refugees is now criminalizing overstayed visas with SWAT-style raids. You remember your history teacher talking about Japanese internment camps and German immigrants interrogated during WWI. You wonder if the textbooks will one day mention Operation Cross-Check, or if this will just be another footnote of shame quietly buried. Your neighbor, an 80-year-old Haitian man named Michel, tells you something that stays with you. This isn't enforcement, it's erasure. He speaks in French accented English, hands shaking as he folds a letter from USCIS his application denied after waiting 17 years. When you fear your own doorbell, are you still free? In an op-ed in the Marshall Project, a former immigration judge wrote that ICE agents today have unchecked authority paired with emotional distance. She described seeing toddlers scream in courtrooms while officers stood stone-faced. One agent reportedly said, "We're not social workers." But that's the problem. No one is. Not anymore. You think of the philosopher Hannah Arendt, who warned of the banality of evil, how cruelty thrives not in monstrous acts but in everyday obedience. Someone books the flights, someone unlocks the cell, someone hits print on the deportation order. It's systematized indifference, and yet there are flickers of resistance. Teachers forming response teams, pastors holding ID workshops in basements, a tech group in Boston building an encrypted app that alerts users to nearby raids using community-sourced data. They're calling it ICE Watch. You realize the question isn't just about policy, it's about who we allow ourselves to come in pursuit of order. How easily do we turn neighbors into threats, lives into files, freedom into a slogan? You wonder, if justice doesn't include mercy, what kind of justice it really is. You're standing in the checkout line when it hits you. That woman ahead, balancing diapers and a bag of oranges, might not see her partner tonight. The man bagging groceries could be next. It's no longer about headlines, it's about habits. Who flinches when the doorbell rings? Who teaches their children to memorize lawyer numbers before the alphabet? Your story is not immune. Maybe you're a citizen. Maybe you were born here, speak without an accent, carry your passport like armor. But ICE doesn't knock politely. Ask the U.S. Army veteran nearly deported because of a bureaucratic error in his paperwork. Ask the teenage girl arrested during her mother's immigration court hearing because she shared a last name flagged in ICE's system. ICE.gov published a bulletin last month bragging about disruption to illegitimate presence. But what if that presence is a father reading bedtime stories, a mother tending tomatoes on a porch, a child scribbling math problems in ESL class? You read about a 10-year-old in Holyoke who asked her teacher, "If ICE comes, can I stay in the janitor's closet?" That question should not exist in a democracy. You remember Track's stark reminder, immigration enforcement is now faster than judicial review. In other words, people disappear before anyone asks if they should. So what do? First, you share this video, not because it's dramatic, but because it's real, because someone, somewhere, needs to know they're not alone. Then you ask your local representatives, what's your policy on ICE detainers? Do your schools have emergency family contacts for detained parents? Is there legal aid at the courthouse? You donate if you can. You show up when you're asked. You teach your kids empathy before patriotism. You post, you protest, you persist. You let your neighbors know you see them. And you remember, silence is not neutrality, it's permission. Because tomorrow, when the vans come back, when the uniforms reappear, when another child is left waiting at a bus stop, maybe the only thing standing between her and oblivion is your voice. And now, as the final light fades from this story, take a breath. Let the images settle. A knock in the dark. A girl drawing her father's face with bars. A woman staring at her husband's empty chair. These aren't statistics, they are slow-motion ruptures, playing out in real lives all around you. You remember the warmth of Luis's laughter, the hum of his tools in the driveway, the way he waved to every passing car. You remember Camila's panda dropped in the snow. These fragments stay with you, not as sorrow, but as fuel. The world is quieter now, but not asleep. There are still hands to hold, laws to question, voices to raise. If you've made it this far, you're already part of the story. You've seen what happens when justice becomes mechanical, when compassion takes a back seat to quotas. But you've also seen how resistance grows in art, in protest, in whispered promises between strangers who refuse to look away. So tonight, light a candle, make a call, leave your porch light on just a little longer. Let your neighbors know they're not alone in the dark. And when the knock comes, and it will, you'll be ready to answer, not with fear, but with solidarity.